Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of the Empires Builders Podcasts, MasterCasts, all the casts, live streaming. We're everywhere. We're on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and we have Miss Karen Hunsanger with us today. How are you, Karen?
I'm good. Hi there, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Look at this, right? You guys didn't expect this. We had a slight twist, a plot twist for you guys today, and we were able to get Karen Hunsanger on to talk about becoming an editor, and we'll talk about other things too. EBM. Honoree's not here to defend herself, so we'll talk about her,
Of course,
all the things. So, how
all
you
the
doing today?
things. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, you've been face down editing and writing and doing all the things.
I am. I'm having a very busy time, and I'm thankful for that because I'm so busy right now that I am now booking December.
Ooh, look at
So, and
that.
they're all repeat and referrals, and I'm very grateful for those. And I thank you, everybody who has sent them my way. I'm so appreciative.
Oh, that's excellent. I guess this is a good time to tell you I need to get on your calendar for early next year.
It's probably a good idea to do that now. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna put my next nonfiction book out sometime early half of next year, and I better get on that calendar before it gets booked up.
That's right.
So, are you allowed to talk about some of your more recent projects you've been working? Are there any that
Sure.
you can talk
A
about?
few of them. I don't have to mention names, but the one that I was knee deep into this morning, I'm working on a children's book with an author who has his two young daughters helping him, and it's way cute. I mean, I get to interview these kids, and I'm really kind of book doctoring this one because he wrote the initial manuscript, and it was. Sorry about that. it's
It's all good.
it was textbook like, and I thought that's not really conducive for a children's book. So I'm writing a story into his manuscript. So I'm book doctoring. I'm doing a little bit of ghostwriting. I'm doing a little bit of editing, and it's about money. It's about finance, and I think it's really good for kids. And his daughters, who are 15 and 9, I believe they are
Wow.
helping. Yeah, so they've given me a lot of kid talk to incorporate into my stories, and it's really fun. They're just very cute. So that's
So,
my fun project right now.
I was going to ask what kind of contribution the girls are they both girls, the daughters?
Both girls, yes.
What kind of contributions are they making to the book?
They are making significant contributions because when I get them on Zoom, I'm asking them to react to like different scenarios. What would you do if your teacher said this? And what would happen if this happened? And, show me your facial expressions so I can see how you would react. And what would you say in this situation? And so they're contributing quite a bit.
Oh, that's great. So I
Yeah, it's
guess
fun.
so that's a lot of book doctoring, right? That's also like a lot of kind of developmental editing on your side, right? Behind the scenes after you've had those conversations.
Yeah, book doctoring is a combination of ghostwriting and developmental editing. It's kind of right between the two of them. There's a line there, and it's really my most fun projects. It's the ones that I enjoy the most. So I'm really liking this one.
Is that with or without transcripts?
And not everybody gives me transcripts, Lucas. It is
uh,
without. He actually had a written manuscript, albeit a little bit rough, especially for
nice.
a kid's book. But
Sure.
that's okay. That's what he hired me for.
Yep. Yep. That's what, and I actually think that's, I mean, before I got into writing books, I was always concerned that you'd have to have this really polished thing before you ever got to an editor. And I mean, obviously, the process of writing that many words and putting all that stuff together and working in that document day after day, it starts to, you start to get, I don't want to say tunnel vision, but you're kind of trapped in the pages to a certain degree. And you just have to realize, like, now you really need that editor to help you in those situations. And you don't have to worry about being perfect. They're there to help guide you where you're falling off. So I love it. I love having that relationship with a developmental editor and with a good book coach.
Well, that's the beauty of having an editor. You can relax a little bit because you know somebody's got your back, especially if you're working with a developmental editor, which is one of my most favorite things to do. So if you're stuck and you're at a point where I just can't look at this anymore, or I could keep writing forever, then it gets sent my way and I help you relax and kind of take over the reins a little bit, and we go back and forth a little bit, and that's okay.
Yeah, this is a really interesting segue into the conversation of writers not only working with editors and proofreaders, but becoming editors and proofreaders. And I feel like I don't know why I assumed this, but I used to assume that they were not in one path then the other. But obviously, that it's logical that people usually are writers before they're editors in some way, shape, or form, whether they ever publish or not, whether they ever get into doing it professionally, writing professionally. There are a lot of people that start out as writers and then they see editing and proofreading as a way to expand their revenue streams in their career, in fiction and nonfiction. And I love that because I was just talking to a young aspiring author. I don't know, he was probably 19, 20, well, he's 20, 21 years old. And he's like, yeah, I can't make any money writing, and I'm still trying to figure out what kind of writer I want to be. And I'm like, didn't you just tell me you edited the school newspaper for 2.5 years?
Right.
He's like, yeah. I'm like, have you thought about doing some editing to bring in some money in addition to the writing? It might be a nice change of pace and a way for you to still work with written work and do all the things. And he was like, oh, it's a great idea. And I'm thinking, yeah, man, if you're really good at it, you're going to have more work than you know what to do with because people love holding on to a good editor. Are you seeing, or have you seen in your career as an editor, a lot of people transition from writing to editing?
Well, first of all, it's exactly what happened to me because I didn't start out thinking that I was ever going to be an editor. That was not the first thing that came to my mind. My book was kind of a passion project. I did it after I retired, and after I published that book, then I started getting people, all of my friends, different authors coming to me and saying, hey, you did an okay job on this. Do you think you could help me do mine? And I did that first one and found out that I really loved helping people find the words when they were lost,
Hmm.
or, when they kind of made minor errors or whatever, to help them to get over that, help them shine. It was just really, really fun. I didn't need to be on the forefront. I just wanted to help them to get where they wanted to go. And it's actually the number one question that I get now is how do I become an editor?
Hmm.
Because my first year, because I'm in the right group and know a lot of the right people, um, was pretty darn successful for year one. And so people flock to me and want to know, how did you do that? How is it that you went from being a writer to an editor all of a sudden, and you've got all of this business? And so I started teaching people. I started mentoring some people. I've got a few people out there that I'm mentoring right now, and it really pleases me. I really enjoy that. I enjoy seeing other people flourish and do what they want to do. Now, not all of them are writers. I would say if you want to be a developmental editor, you really must have been a writer, or you must be pretty gifted at writing because it takes a lot of writing to do that. Um, a copy editor, a proofreader, those are mostly grammar gurus, people who just got the A's in grammar and are just like really passionate about finding punctuation and spelling errors. Well, that's not really me. I can do it, but I prefer um, to really get into the content. And what I did is I developed a test for people that I haven't even published yet, that I'm going to put out there for some students, some past students of mine, to help them determine which editor they are really a good fit for, what their skills and what their attributes, what direction that points them into. So they can tell the difference, because people are confused about the difference in
Yeah.
editors. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I openly admit to, I thought there was just one type of editor.
Everybody does.
It's like,
Everybody does.
and then Honoree's like, sit down, young one. And I'm like, yes, ma'am. She's like, let me explain how all this works. And I'm like, oh, like I thought a proofreader was another editor going behind an editor, just to have two sets of eyes on the document. And sometimes, well, oftentimes,
It kind of is in a way.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they have different purposes,
They do.
And I think that was where I was kind of confused. I do want to take just one break from the conversation to say hello to Renee, who's saying hi to us.
Hi, Renee.
Hello, Renee. She is consistently supportive of the show. Renee, thank you so much for joining us again today. You can help me. Yeah, you can help us harass Honore over message.
Yeah, we would enjoy that.
And then we have Kellen Ann. Hello, Kellen. Ann, how are we?
Hello.
Yes, calling for Facebook. So we have Facebook, YouTube reps. We're gonna get a LinkedIn next. It's just gonna happen. That's what's gonna have to happen. So when we talk about all right, I'm gonna share this on the screen. Renee's she's definitely up for harassing Honore, which is good.
Good job.
Yeah. I didn't talk much about it at the beginning of the show, but Honore is unable to be with us today. So that's one of the reasons why we're all rooting to harass her. It's a busy time of year, but anyway, with the so if let's say I was a writer that wanted to become an editor, I wouldn't know where to start. I wouldn't know where. I would probably go to an editor that I know and say, hey, what does this look like? How do I get from point A to point B? Did the exam or quiz or test or survey that you created that helps people understand where their skills are and where they're probably wanting to go, is that available through your program? Is that a part of your structured program?
It will be part of my book. And I am actually sending it out to people who request it. If you email me, I will send it to you, because I'm curious to find out what people think of, number one, the quiz itself, and number two, where they fit in. It's really interesting to find out what people enjoy doing and what their skill levels are. And I'm always looking for good proofreader and copy editors, because I include some of that within my services. So it's nice to have that second set of eyes and somebody that I can hire to help me do that.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So anyone can request that
Yes.
survey from you. That's excellent.
Yeah.
And then so like if I take that survey and it tells me, does it like you had mentioned that it might show me where my strengths are, right?
Yes.
Do you drive people down those strengths first? Is there like what's on the back side of the survey?
Well, it's up to them to reach out to me or somebody else after that point. What you said in the very beginning is absolutely correct. You said that you would contact an editor that you know. Well, that's absolutely what you do. Anytime you want to learn how to do something, you get a hold of somebody who's doing what you want to do.
Right.
And learn from them. And a lot of times they can send you to different programs or to other people, to different courses and things to learn, different books. There are a lot of books to help people. And I'm in the middle of writing one. So I'm going to be getting that out at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
To help people further, because I get this question so much that I really wanted to give people a place to go.
Oh, that's excellent. And you, so just for people that maybe aren't familiar, you're writing the book about this, which will come out in the beginning of the year, but you also have like a group coaching kind of program for editors, right?
I did a little 4-week mini beta course, because I wanted to use it honestly, not only to help people, but it helped me finish my book. And it also helped me construct the quiz that I have done out there now. So, God bless them.
Is Rogue there?
I love my dog. But obviously there's a serial killer at the door. So,
well,
we'll try to ignore him.
Yeah, well, we are friends of pets on the show. Like I was just doing a podcast interview with a friend of mine earlier in the week, and her cat was in her lap meowing, and her dog was in the next room barking at the cat.
Okay.
And I was cracking up. I'm like, you're in the sandwich right now. You're like literally trapped between two animals that want to share their opinions with you, right?
Right.
Right in the middle of a
Well, apparently
show.
he has something to say about what I'm saying right now. Yeah. So
He
his
was a
name
big
is
fan of the
Andy.
beta.
His name is Andy, and he's a beautiful golden retriever, and I love him to the moon. He's my
Yeah,
boy.
Andy's a sweet dog.
Yeah, so I ran a little mini course for
Mhm.
about 4 weeks and got a lot of input from a lot of really talented, curious people, and it was very fun. I don't have one going currently, but I'm going to be doing another one. It was pretty successful, and in fact, the biggest feedback that I got at the end was, "Could you please make this longer?" It wasn't long enough, and I thought, "Oh, okay. Well,
Oh,
there's nothing wrong with that comment."
wow. And you may
So
have already stated it, and I might have missed it. How long was your program?
the first one was only 4 weeks.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because I thought that I could cover everything in 4 weeks, which I did, but they thought it was a little fast. They wanted more. They wanted more practice time, a little bit more feedback,
Right.
and I will do that again, probably in October.
Excellent. Uh-oh. We've got Wayne in Egypt.
Really?
Yeah.
Hi, Wayne.
Hey, Wayne, how's it going,
I see
shipmate?
the little camel there. That's pretty cute.
Yeah, he is in Egypt. Wayne helps with the ship repair and shipbuilding and uh, naval assets. I can say that.
Okay, I'm completely impressed,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah. He was a shipmate of mine back in the Coast Guard, and then obviously we've stayed close since, and we've worked together on a few things post both of our retirements. So
I'm impressed that you both survived.
survived working with me.
Yes, kind of read between the lines there. That's very good, Lucas.
Well, you've survived working with me at least twice. So,
I enjoyed working with you.
oh well, thank you. I
For
enjoyed
anybody
working
who,
with you
who
too.
doesn't know, you are an absolutely amazing, incredible, talented writer. And I know you're
Stop.
rolling your eyes at that, but you are.
Well, thank you so much.
And I got a little teeny taste of the fiction that you have coming out, and it's just absolutely brilliant.
That's so nice of you to say. Thank you. You know how good I am at taking compliments.
I know you don't like it. That's why I'm pushing. There's nothing more fun than to see you turn red.
Yeah. Well, you've seen me turn red a few times. Like, what was were we at the EBM meeting and we were all messing around and I was giving you a hard time at the table and then you got me back and I was like, flush.
I don't remember, but it sounds kind of typical
Yeah.
that we would banter back and forth a little.
So for those that aren't familiar with the Empire Builders Master Class, which is not to be confused with the Empire Builders Mastermind, right? The Mastermind is where Karen and I met. We're both have the fortune of having Honore as our mentor in that program, and of course, she's just fantastic at picking people that would get along and work well together. So there I am sitting next to Karen, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna need an editor. And she's like, I do editing. And I was like, awesome. And she jumps in and just becomes way more than an editor. Just literally like the linchpin to my progress in that book as I was writing Monetize Your Book with the Course. I really needed that relationship. And I think that that's a really strong reason to work with someone like you to learn how to become an editor, because I've worked with editors before in different capacities that were shocked that we actually met face to face. I'm like, hey, do we get on Zoom together sometime soon? They're like, oh, I don't usually do that, but we can if you need to. And I'm like, okay. Same with proofreaders. And there's just there's very different ways that the services are rendered in the industry. Not saying one way is better or than the other or right or wrong, just saying there are different types of relationships between writers and editors, writers and proofreaders out there. And yours was exactly what I needed to make my nonfiction book move forward. So much so, and so great at it that I was like immediately bludgeoned you with the second manuscript. so,
Well, I
so
like being busy, and it's funny because within our EBM mastermind group, there are a handful of people that I've worked with now. I've been really fortunate, and face to face is nice, isn't it? When you get to
yeah,
meet the people that you're going to work with,
Right.
And I even face to face a lot of times with the people that I don't know personally. I like to jump on Zoom. I on the phone with them, and I think that that personal relationship is critical.
Right.
It's just so important to doing the best job that you can for people.
Yeah, I mean, to understand the writer a bit, to understand their voice, not like their audible voice, but their written voice, to understand their goals, orientation, all the things. I think you really have to have that conversation. I'm not saying you got to be like talking to each other every night for an hour. I'm just saying like you do have to get familiar enough with your clients that you can do that. And I would imagine, I'm asking you because you're the expert here, but I would imagine the more you get away from strict copy editing or strict proofreading and you move more toward book coaching and book doctoring and all those things, that is obviously scales up, right? The interaction between the client and the provider scales up, right? So is there a big difference for in like if you had to recommend someone choosing to take one route before the other, would you recommend them exploring the fundamentals of copy editing and proofreading first?
Well, there's a huge difference. You're right about that. And that's where my quiz comes in. If you take my quiz, editors and proofreaders mostly have a tendency to be left alone. They want to be, they like working on their own. They don't need to have that one-on-one development. There's emails that go back and forth, obviously, but their work usually comes from somebody who's been through the developmental editor or book doctor or book coach process. And those people, the book doctor, book coach, developmental editor, those people require a little bit more one-on-one relationship kind of things. Because the first thing that you need to know is what is the client's purpose for their book? What does that author want to do with this book? I mean, are they going to use it as a marketing tool? Are they going to, is it just a passion project and they really don't care about the marketing part of it? Because I like to go the extra mile in that role and help them with their front matter and their back matter. And if they're a first time author, they don't know about those things. So the more that you can help them and guide them, the more successful they're going to be, the more happy they're going to be with your service. And I'm just very service oriented. I want that author to shine. It is everything I've got to get them to look good. That's my job.
I love that. And your point about front and back matter being different in that situation is, in that case, you're helping them develop those things and exposing them to new ways to leverage their book for a marketing and representation of a business and those types of things, right? Is that what you mean by that?
Absolutely. You know, like for instance, in the back matter where you would typically find the author bio, well, they want to mention their company, their firm, their emails, their contacts, especially if they're wanting to use it as a marketing tool. Sometimes an author of a different kind of project, rather, is not as concerned about that.
Right.
Front matter being a lot of times, you know, do they want a dedication? Do they want to put a special invitation in the front to direct people to their social media? All kinds of different things that you can help an author with when it's their first time. They're just not aware.
Right. Now, for those that don't understand the value of having this period in the beginning, in the first half of the book, in my humble opinion, of working very closely with a book coach or a book doctor to make sure that you're building the right book and thing to serve the right audience and to serve your business the right way. A great example of that would be when you and I first started working on my first book. We weren't even working on the book that got published, right?
No.
Like we shifted
Right.
gears because you and I had a good conversation where I said, "Hey, I think I might be writing the wrong book. It's the right book, but it's the wrong book, right? It's like it's going to be a good book, but it's not the right book for who I'm serving, and what my business really needs right now. My business drivers, my goals for my business, aren't necessarily aligned to this book project I started 2 years ago." Having you there to talk through with that was huge for me because I wouldn't have had the confidence to shift, having invested that much time in that book up to that point, without having someone to lean on that I knew I could trust, that had clear eyes, that wasn't emotionally involved in, you know, the business, if you will, but was emotionally concerned for the business, right? Like you really want your clients to succeed, but it's also, you know, they're going to feel different about it because it's their business. That was huge, having that kind of relationship with you, because we left that one conversation saying, yep, you know what, we're this needs to change, we need to shift gears and put this other book out. And that set us on a path for another 6 months that was totally different than the original path. So is there a perspective on that
Well,
experience?
it's funny because I remember those early conversations, and you being the kind and thoughtful person that you were, you didn't want to, I think you felt like you might be wasting my time in the very beginning, and you were like, I don't know if this is the right thing, and you're kind of tiptoeing around a little bit with, I was considering this, and I'm like, oh, heck yeah. I'm like the bull in the china closet. Yeah, let's dump that puppy and let's go forward with what you want to do. And the thing is, look at how it set you up.
Yeah.
Look at where it put you. You knew what you needed to do. You knew where you needed to go. And you've done how many books since then? Yeah, you got
It was
that.
this one.
Yeah.
This is what you ended up with.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if
And
we hadn't
then,
had that conversation, this book wouldn't be here.
yeah, but we did, and you moved forward, and
Right.
you have your courses, and you've got another one. Yeah, you just took yourself in a totally different direction, and it was fun to watch.
Well, thank you. It was I needed that relationship, and it was so valuable to me as a new author that I was 100% committed to having someone in that role on every book I ever work on ever again. I'll never not do a book or I'll never do a book where I don't have that relationship with an editor of some caliber in the book doctoring or developmental editing kind of thing, because it was so critical to the development of that book that it just like cemented my faith in that relationship immediately. We took that same production style and relationship and rolled it into this second book. And I didn't really take a lot of time off between publishing the first one and starting the writing process for the second one. And knowing that I had you there to support me when I was juggling book marketing and writing another book and conceptualizing the second book, made me feel like I could do both. If I didn't have that relationship, I wouldn't have been comfortable doing both. So another check in the box for having the right type of editing relationship and the right type of coaching relationship is that it gives you the ability to be more productive even when you have overlapping projects, especially when you have overlapping projects, than you would be if you were on your own. So I just feel like the investment's worth it every day, that you're doing that.
Well, good. I remember getting that second one from you, and you're so busy, and most authors are. Everybody who's running a business is had got their hands full.
Yeah.
And so you transcribed a lot of that, but fortunately for me, you're such a good speaker that you speak almost the same way you write, and that was really easy for me to convert that, and that was a fun job to do. And I
Oh,
think
thank you.
yeah, I think it made us a pretty good team because you really needed to grab back some of your time for other things, and I was able to kind of relieve some of that pressure for you, and I was really happy to do that.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, thank you for doing that. And there's more. So the relationship part of that is important, right? Because you can, as the person creating content, you can collaborate with that person on the other side of the table and say, how can I do this in a way that you find it useful, right?
Right.
That we can meet these. And when you're speaking the same language and you have an experience with somebody already, that conversation happens fairly quickly. So this is a note to people out there that may not have had that kind of relationship with their first book, maybe even their second or third book, and they're still seeking that. It gives you a bit of a standard with which to compare, right? Like, hey, I can work with someone at that level. Yes, you can. The force multiplier is not the stuff that's written on most articles. Oh, there's Jen Pisano
Hi, Jen.
tuned in for the second half. Hey, Jen.
Good to see
Excellent.
her.
Yeah.
She's such a good girl. We love
Yeah.
Jen.
Yes, and Jen just did some proofreading on my fiction book.
Jen is one of my students from my first class, and one of my mentees, and she is fabulous. She is going to be very, very good. She will be somebody everyone will want to reach out to at some point in time.
So good to work with. It was funny getting
Easy.
messages from her in the middle of her. She's like, dude, this scene has got me on edge. And I'm like, all right, great. It's working.
That's good. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Story's being told right.
Yeah, made me, because when you send your work off to an editor and it's silent, you're like, I hope they think it's okay. Is it total
Now,
garbage?
now
Yeah.
now you brought up a really interesting point in the difference between a nonfiction and a fiction, because they are different.
Oh yeah,
And a developmental editor that's good for a nonfiction is not necessarily good for a fiction.
that's true.
However, a copy editor and a proofreader can do either relatively easy, because those people are just thinking about the mechanics. So Jen, who is accustomed to more nonfiction, really did a great job on your fiction, because she was really looking for the mechanical errors, and you needed somebody to come in and fine tune that for you.
Absolutely. To me is non-negotiable to have a proofreader.
Right.
I know a lot of authors, they'll have an editor and they'll have a really good relationship with an editor and they don't move to proofing, or they'll replace that proofing with a beta group, which I think is a hazard personally.
I agree.
Because I'm well, one, the beta group may not be at the level of competency and skill that you need them to be at to serve that purpose, and second, they may not feel comfortable bringing these things to your attention. So, thank you, Jen. Jen was great in all those fronts because, and I could obviously tell that she had worked with you on some of this, because in areas of the manuscript where she wanted me to consider things, she was good about putting notes in and walking me through the thought process. Maybe something I say in my head and when I write means something different than what everyone else reading it will see, right? So it makes me stop and go, oh wait, you know what? They're right. I'm confusing people with this. Or, oh wow, this could be better. Like I walked right by that line when I wrote it and didn't even see the power of it. And the reader's grabbing it and going, oh man, look at this. And it might be an opportunity to really throw some color in there. So working with you, Jen, was great. Talking like she's not here.
Yeah, she's fabulous. She's just a good human. She's just so lovable. But it's interesting. Some people will question, well, why do I need a copy editor or a proofreader after I've had a developmental editor or a line editor? Why can't they do it all? And a lot of times when you're doing a line edit and a copy or a developmental edit, you'll catch those mistakes if you see them, but that's not your concentration. You are really looking hard at the content. And a lot of times you'll miss the little things because you are trying to do something totally different. So to expect that from your developmental editor or your line editor and expect them to be perfect is not reasonable. They will try to as much as they can, but there always needs to be a proofreader at the very minimum that comes in behind any editor. You've got to do that last step, or there are going to be things that get missed.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's fantastic advice for first-time authors and for anyone who's been writing.
Any
You're not
author.
currently doing that. You really need to think that through. It's critical. So tell me a little bit about what the process looks like of becoming an editor. So like, let's say I come to someone like you who's established and can identify my strengths and my weaknesses and help me work on those. What's the timeline like normally? I know this isn't for everybody because everyone's different. But what does the experience normally look like regardless of the time? Like, how do you walk into this world?
Well, you kind of hit the nail on the head when you said it's different for everybody, because it depends on your skill level. There are people who are very talented writers, have read all their lives, have written all their lives, who can walk into a developmental editing job and it just comes natural for them. Now they still need training, but there's the earlier, the younger person who is just thinking about it, that needs to take a quiz, that needs to find out what their skill levels are. that needs to talk to other editors and find out what paths they took, more than one, because everybody's different. And then I always direct them to number one, groups. Networking is gold. You cannot beat networking with a writer's group or an author's group, and not for the intention of finding clients from the beginning. It's just networking, just talking to people, building relationships. Building relationships is the number one most important thing you can do, bar none. And once you start building those relationships and you start talking about what you do, what your specialties are, what you're working on, then people start to want to try you out. Then they're, oh, okay, I have a relationship. I like, know, and trust this person now. Maybe I would like to consider using them on my book. Now, in addition to that, in addition to networking, I always say take some courses. Go out on the internet and find some places where you can learn things, and you can learn things for free a lot of times. Chicago Manual of Style has got a lot of quizzes out on their website that you can take and learn what some of their standards are, for instance, and that is really helpful. And once you do those two things and you're networking, and you do get that first bite, then I say do a couple of things for free. Do a friend's blog, do your first manuscript, and don't charge for that. And learn from the process and show people what you can do. And then even after that, once you are established and you're starting to get paid gigs, you do samples. You find out from the author if you are a good fit for them and they are a good fit for you. You know what your skill level is, their skill level is, and they know what yours is. And I always do a couple thousand words as a sample for people, just to see what it is I'm working with. And I can't really price a manuscript until I see it anyway. And then they know whether they like me, and I know whether I like them, and you kind of go from there.
I really love that part, because I don't, I mean, there's a traditional approach to X amount per word, right? Like it's, and then it's a word count math problem, and that's, the writers are often thinking, yeah, how much, what's your rate? But there's so much more to it than that, because the amount of effort that goes into 2,000 well-written words versus 2,000 poorly written words is very different.
Right.
Right. And so, yeah, even though the rate may not change if you offer a fixed rate type of service, although I probably would have a different rate in that situation. Man, this looks like this is going to hurt. My rate's a little different. It's like, that's a joke. I don't know some people might actually do that. I probably would, but if you're looking at that kind of work, you really have to see enough of it and get a grasp of the totality of that writing in a big enough sample size to be able to accurately predict how much effort it's going to take to edit that work.
Well, it's like you mentioned, all authors are at different skill levels. All editors are at different skill levels too. So to have that sample, I always have to have a sample before I can come up with my price. And I do price them differently. A new editor will 9.5 times out of 10 have a higher price than somebody who is experienced and, have been around the block a few times, because there's just so much more to do with a new editor. But I always give them the very best service too. Those are, I specialize almost in new authors, because they're the ones that need the most help. So,
Right.
yeah, so it's critical to do that sample.
Look who we've got here.
Oh, is that Miss Honore?
Yes.
Well, we can't talk about her anymore now because she's listening.
We talked all about you. Well, she was probably listening.
Yeah, she probably was. We have nothing but love to send your way anyway. We adore you and hope to see you soon.
Yeah, I hope you're ready to rock and roll. We've got some FaceTime actually happening soon. Really excited. And that includes you as well. I will be seeing you soon, Miss Karen.
Right. I'm going to see you this next week.
Yeah, it's going to be
Yeah,
great.
we're going to be at an event together, and that's going to be really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, looking forward to that. And we could talk about that next editing project. It'll be part of the discussion.
Right. Okay. Okay. I'll bring my calendar book with me.
Yeah, do that. You might want to, yeah, you might want to bring that with you just for at least like, so you can gauge how much pain you want when.
I've gotten to
24.
where I carry it with me almost everywhere I go anyway, because yeah, I never know who I'm going to bump into or who's going to call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Wayne. We hope you have a safe one over there, buddy.
Hey, thank you, Wayne.
Yeah, so let's see. So let's dive just a little bit more into the life of an editor, right? Because I feel like a lot of this looks good on the outside to writers. They're like, well, I love to read, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Clearly, I'd love to just get paid to read.
Right.
That's, I mean, how much work is there here? Like, and it's like, well, yes.
The concentration level alone is intense.
I mean,
It's
you really have to
intense.
slow down, right? I mean,
You really do. You have to be, and I'm a crazy person. The hours that I work, people don't want to work what I do,
I don't know, it works
but
well for me.
it's the most quiet time. I'm up in the middle of the night a lot of times, 2, 3 in the morning working on manuscripts, and nobody's going to call you. So I've got uninterrupted time, and I'm more fresh that time of day than I am any other time anyway. So I can do a lot of hours of work when I begin there, and my days are long. My days are
Mhm.
long, but that's because I choose them to be. So there are a lot of editors who can do the job part-time and just, filter in their jobs when it's comfortable for them to do so and spend fewer hours than I do. But I think I'm a little bit of an aberration. I am kind of a maniac when it comes to working hours, but I don't have to. I want to. I'm retired and it's what I love to do. And anybody else who's considering being an editor, if it's something that you really love, you're going to make your own hours. You're going to find your own way. You're going to figure out what works for you, and you're going to make it work if that's what you really want to do.
Well, I like that you brought up the fact that you're retired from your corporate career,
Yes, yes,
and working full time as an editor, but you have flexibility because it is your business and it's your work, and you get to choose the volume with which you take on, the clients that you have available to, that are interested in working with you. You get to choose the clients and the wins. And I think that's really liberating and powerful, especially since a lot of people watching this are trying to build an empire of their own, and they're maybe learning what options they have available to them. I feel like, and you can tell me if I'm crazy here, but I feel like your approach to picking the times that work best for you not only make your job more enjoyable, but they also make your productivity better, right? Like, I don't want to make it sound like you couldn't be productive outside of those bounds, but you have the freedom to construct those times with which you're working. You're not clocking in on someone else's clock. So I think this is great for like stay-at-home moms or people that work from home, writers who are trying to get a full-time writer career going and they're looking to fill in the blanks. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity to have a flexible option here to make some money and do something you love, and not be beholden to someone else. Because I think, sometimes people say, oh, this whole, I'm not getting as much royalties off my books, or I'm not making as many sales as I wish I was, or I'm not serving as many clients as I wish I was. That's it. I got to go file for a 9 to 5. They're just like automatically default to that. And I would think it'd be easier to maybe not easier, but maybe more enjoyable to step into something like this where you maintain your flexibility and have more options.
Well, it's completely individual for me personally, because I'm retired from my 9 to 5 for about 4 years now. I mean, my biggest concern is how many treats my dog needs in the day, and what I'm going to feed my husband when he comes home, because dang it, he's hungry every day, every single day that
I just never
happens.
stops eating.
It just never does. So, but it's like anything else. I remember when I was working, if there was something that I really wanted to do, when did I fit it in?
Hmm.
I fit it in just because I really wanted to. And there are ways that anybody can do this if their heart is really into it. And it's one of those fun things that you can definitely choose your own hours. I mean, put the kids to bed and work for an hour. Work for an hour before the kids get up, and you have to deal with lunches and what have you. And a lot of times the moms send their kids off to school and get an hour here or an hour there, especially for a proofreading job. That's really beneficial, really fits well with that kind of a job. A developmental editor, it's a little bit more difficult because it takes some very heavy concentration. But yes, you absolutely, as a mom, even a single mom, you can absolutely do this job. And single dads and guys who are trying to get out of their corporate jobs, forever, and try to skate into something that they would love to do and like a lot better than what they're doing now. There are ways to do it because it's so flexible.
Right. And I love that you can use it as a change of pace kind of option as well. So, right, it's different writing than it is proofreading and editing.
Yes.
And I mean, the last couple of weeks, my brain's been like, because of,
Yeah.
finishing 2 books and the whole thing. And, I can't wait to read someone else's words.
Right.
It's like
Right.
a little bit of a palate cleanser and a break away from looking at the same documents that I've been looking at, whether they be nonfiction, fiction books, blog articles, whatever. When it's all you all the time and you're generating all this material, it's nice to have an option to break away from your own work and do the same type of work with someone else's words, someone else's voice, even a completely different genre than you write in. It could be a really nice way to kind of have that gear shift without having to completely depart the pattern and go do something wildly different.
Well, I'll tell you what, the variation that you get doing what I do, people ask, what are you reading? And I'm reading a lot of things because I'm reading everybody else's work. But talking about jumping from genre to genre, I typically do nonfiction, self-help. But lately I got a romance, and it was actually more of a fiction than a nonfiction. It was based on a true story, but there was some steamy parts in there. And and I was a little embarrassed, honestly. But I got through it, and the whole story wasn't that way. And in fact, she was very, very good, very talented writer. And Jen, that's going to be coming your way here pretty soon to prove, my dear. So, yeah, it's got its level of interest. There's no doubt about that.
That's really cool. I would love to see at the end of the year, like the lists of different books that you've been able to work with, and say you would have never probably had that experience with those books had you not been providing editing and proofreading and book doctoring and coaching and everything.
Oh yeah, and it's just so fun because I love reading anyway. I laugh and cry with these authors. I mean, their stories really touch me. Amber Furman was one whose book is just so doggone inspirational, and I laughed and cried with her. Helen Bullen, when she wrote her book about having cancer, I laughed and I cried with her too. And how much more fun can you have than that? I mean, it's just so interesting and fun to get into these different books.
Yeah, I made Jen cry.
Oh, Jen. Oh, look at him laughing. He's laughing at you, friend.
I felt bad.
That's not even nice.
I felt bad, but I kind of was proud. It's so bad.
Naughty Fiction for the Win. Was that her too?
I don't know. It might have
That's
been.
so
It may have
funny.
been. It may have been
Naughty
her.
Fiction for the Win. Yes,
It may have been Honore.
Oh, maybe. Could be.
I'm completely assuming that there's
Reveal
no name
yourselves, please.
on this. Yes, I know that the crying part was not Honore. I've never made Honore cry.
Oh yeah, yeah. But she sure would laugh at you.
Yeah, she's laughed at me plenty of times. Jen. Yeah, there you go.
It was Jen.
So for those that, and I won't like pitch my fiction book here, but I wrote a fiction book that deals with child loss, and I wrote it through the perspective of a mother. The first person character, the main character, is the mother, and so having a mother proofread it was a little bit of a plan for me. I was like, okay, because my wife is like basically one of my developmental editors. She helps me while I'm writing. Oh, so Honore said the
Oh, it was
naughty
Honore
fiction
that
for the
said the
win.
naughty fiction for the win. Ah,
She owned up to it. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So when Jen proofread it, I was secretly like, hey, have fun with this book. And I was thinking, okay, I'm going to have a proofreader that's a mom. And my
Good thinking.
editor was a guy.
Right.
So I wanted to see how that conveyed to a female writer and a mother who would be reading this book. So, anyways, mission successful.
Well, she was a fantastic proofreader and certainly would be good for anybody looking for one, for
That's
sure.
right. And so she worked with you on your beta program.
Yes, she did.
And
Yes, she
so
did.
what happens after an experience like that where you learn from someone or learn with someone like yourself and you form that relationship and you now have those tools to succeed? What is life like after that kind of
You
program?
mean for the student? For the
Yes.
mentee? Oh, well, it's just exactly what she stepped into. Now she's doing some proofreading jobs.
So it's pretty quick.
It was, well, if you have the capability of learning
Right.
the skills, it's something that you can do pretty quick.
Right.
So, and let's face it, the more practice you do of anything, the better you're going to get.
That's right.
And she's so willing and so capable that she's going to do really well.
So she's over here. Thank
See how sweet she is.
She really is. You
It's
know, it
all
was,
you, girlfriend.
yeah, she was really, really good to work with. And like you said, great attention to detail on the mechanics in the book.
Yes.
That's the one thing I worried the most about on the proofread, to be honest, is,
Yeah.
things like that slipping through. I will keep the author's name close because I feel bad for this person, but they're a New York Times bestselling author. They are a force in their genre. They have done all the things. If you go to a Barnes and Noble, you will see an entire shelf of books dedicated to this author. And I've had a chance to meet them and talk with them. And it's in the fiction space. And before I met them, I had read several of their novels. And I was really excited at the opportunity to discuss some of their characters with them because I was like, oh, this one character was driving me nuts, and I got to give you an earful on this. But the thing I felt bad for them was when I was reading these books, I saw very clear mechanical errors, like very fundamental failures in the editing of the book, and I knew that author had nothing to do with those failures besides initially drafting them. And because they're a traditionally published author, they have less control over the editing process, the product that's put out onto the streets, all those types of things. Not to hit traditional publishers, there are plenty of books on both sides of the fence in publishing that are great or not. But I felt bad for this person because their proofreader did not do their job, and their editor clearly missed some very key fundamental elements of line editing. So that it just jumps off as a quality issue to me, that is inexcusable whether you're self-published or traditionally published. It's the responsibility of the person putting the book out into the world, whether it be a traditional publishing house or an indie publisher, to make sure that work is done. And it's a reflection, of course, from the reader who's not a writer, who doesn't understand the publishing world. It's a reflection on the author.
Yes.
So if you're the writer, you've got to, and you have the responsibility and the ability to control this, I think you have to. It's non-negotiable.
It's such a shame because there really is no need for that. And where I was making the point before, I'll make it once again because I think it's important, where the difference between fiction and nonfiction in terms of content and having a content editor, there are two different skill levels, but a proofreader can do either. Mm-hmm. Because a good proofreader is looking for mechanical, and grammar is grammar, whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction. So there really is no excuse not to find a good proofreader.
Yeah. Well, can I ask you the most riveting and this might be the sexiest question related to editing and proofreading?
Oh boy.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Talk to me about that Chicago Manual of Style. Is
Oh,
this the
God. The thing is so big and thick that you could use it as a weapon if you decided to throw it at somebody. I mean, the thing is huge. So what typically happens is when you're trying to find something, when you really have a question, sometimes it's a little difficult.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and I'm finding just from something that happened recently that I'm still learning some things that I thought that I knew. And you know, you don't stop learning no matter what.
I mean, it's funny moving from the academic field into, we're working in government first, then publishing in academics, where I had to follow a different standard. Thanks, Jen. And then moving over to, the fiction and nonfiction worlds outside of academics. It was interesting to me that we were, moving toward Chicago. And I was like, oh, cool. What is this like for my editor? Do they have this massive reference? It's obviously online, but how is that? Like, you become very intimate with your standard, right?
You do. But there's one thing that I always tell my student editors. The manual of style is just that. It is a style. It is a recommendation. There are no rules. The rules are really coming from your author. For instance, the Chicago Manual of Style has a way to do an ellipsis. We talked about this recently.
I was about to say,
but a lot
I
of
never
authors
use them.
don't like that dot space dot. It looks odd to them, and they want to do the dot dot dot. I did an entire manuscript where I changed that, and the author hated it and changed it all back. And that's okay. The Chicago Manual of Style police are not going to come and arrest you if you don't follow their style. And they're not really rules, they're style, as long as it's consistent. What you don't want is to have it one way in one section of the book and in another do it completely different. That's what is really important. And that's what a good proofreader is looking for.
That's excellent. Yeah, because I was using a lot of dialogue in my recent publication that Jen was proofing. Yeah, and I was doing a lot of like contentious discussion in these dialogues between people that were like changing their minds or holding their tongues or cutting each other off, and so I had ellipses everywhere. Like, and poor Jen was like. The funny part to me before I handed the manuscript over was I had the same experience, going through it after I wrote it. I'm like, oh God, I got to standardize all these. I got to get rid of some of these. Like, I got to do something with this. And I wrote a note like, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Because I didn't get a clear answer online,
Yeah, that's the problem with some of these styles, manual of styles, is that you cannot always find without really spending a considerable amount of time doing your research. And sometimes you're going to miss things. Right. Sometimes you're going to learn something brand new later on, which is what I did this past week. So, it's you just try to be consistent and do the best you can.
I love it. So before we go, obviously, if anyone's got any questions for Karen, please drop them in the chat. We'd love to answer them for you before we drop off here in a couple minutes. But while people are considering that, tell us a little bit about where we can get in contact with you, whether it be for editing and proofreading services or for education and mentorship.
Well, you can go to my website for sure, KarenHunsanger.com. If you want to drop me an email, it's hunsanger@msn.com. And I always answer those. I'm always happy to answer them. I'm not going to be doing another class for a few weeks yet, but I'm happy to send the quiz out to anybody who is thinking about becoming an editor. Send me an email and I will answer you back happily with that quiz so that you can determine what your skill level is and where you fit in.
Oh, thank you. I think this is Jen, maybe.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate that very much.
There you go. Thank you so much. And check the show notes, guys. You can see a link to Karen's site. Karen, your program, the next run of it, have you decided whether you're going to keep it as a 4-week program or extend it?
No, I got so much pushback on that. In fact, they wanted 8. I think that I am settling on 6.
Okay.
That I will do a 6-week program. The next
Excellent. And what's the weekly commitment like?
I'm going to be doing it on Saturday. Last time I did it on Sunday morning, but I missed a lot of my church-going friends, and so I think I'm going to do it on a Saturday morning to try to capture those people who can't make the other hours, working or whatever, and try to accommodate a few more people. So
Excellent. Excellent. And is that a certain amount of time each Saturday?
it's going to be an hour on Saturday morning, generally about 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock Central Time, depending on how many of my Pacific Coast peeps I get who have interest in it. But right around there, so that it's not an all-day commitment. And I give a lot of homework. I can tell you that. There's a lot of practice work, and then a lot of discussion about the reading material when we do meet. So it's
Excellent.
a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun. Jen was one of my best students. She asked the best questions, the best. So I'm not
I love
surprised that she's like jumping into it, because she's very good.
That's awesome. Well, guys, if you want, go ahead and connect with Karen, which I know you want to do. You should just go do it. Don't even wait. And you can find her at KarenHunsanger.com, and then you can reach out to her. It's Karen at KarenHunsanger.msn.
Well, it's Hunsanger at msn.com.
Hunsanger. Gotcha.
Hunsanger at msn.com.
And guys, that's with an A, not an I.
Yes. He's saying this because he spelled it wrong. A lot of people spell it wrong. Don't feel bad.
You know what it's like to make an error like that with your editor's name, and then and then they come back like, "Hey, dude,
Your fee is double next time.
That's right.
Because obviously you need to be watched closely.
it's bad enough you're doing it to a friend, but you're also doing it to your editor, who's like, look, I already have enough trouble from you with the words that aren't related to me. Yeah, I have to butcher my last name." So, well, thank you so much for spending your time with us today, Karen, and for sharing all of your great insight into, what it's like to step into the world of editing and proofreading. I was so thrilled to have you with me today, and I know Honore is obviously appreciative that you were available, and I think it made it a much better episode, because otherwise you guys would have just been stuck with me talking about course pricing, and no one wants that. So
It was so much fun, and I hope I hear from people. I would love to.
yes, so please reach out to Karen, and we'll see you guys next Thursday. Same bat time, same bat channel. You guys make sure you subscribe to the show. Check us out on YouTube, and keep your eyes peeled here on Facebook and LinkedIn for next week's notification of live stuff, all the live fun. So, okay, guys, thank you so much. Karen, thank you so much. And we'll
Bye,
see everybody
everybody.
next week.